to order, and we'll do a roll call. Do we do that?
Give me a second here. Okay, Robert Burns.
Here.
Dan Griffin. Absent. Larry Hafner.
Here.
Edward Hamel.
Here.
Richard Shield.
Here.
James Weiser.
Here. Now, if we ask Aaron to read the public hearing notice.
Please take note that an application has been made by Mark and Dana Cairns from Hoka, Minnesota for an interim use permit for a startup business being a seasonal storage facility in an agricultural protection district in Hoka Township. The applicants make the application as fee owners of described lands. A hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room, Caledonia, Minnesota at 7 p.m. on Thursday, May 23rd. All persons having an interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to be heard relative to the granting or denying of the application, and this was advertised on May 8th.
Would you guys care to just kind of give us a view of what you're planning?
Well, I'm hoping to put up a 112 by 60 foot, just a hole. It's gonna be all wide open, and just put boats and campers and things like that into it. Wintertime and hopefully summertime storage too. This is gonna be my retirement money, I hope.
Mark, for the folks who are going to relive this moment over and over again, can you get in on that microphone a little bit so we can get it for the recording?
That's okay.
It's on now.
Yeah. So I've included the criteria that are required for a startup business in your staff reports. They're 5-year reviewable permits. They're not transferable, so the owners, they can't receive the permit here tonight and sell it. Have to be located on a minimum of an acre. The county board must determine the days and hours of operation. County board must determine the maximum number of employees, and it must be located on the homestead of the applicants. And there's some other requirements regarding signs, but they're not proposing any signs in their application, so they're not applicable. I guess as I understand their application from talking with them about it, they're looking to store primarily boats over the winter for folks who might not have storage themselves, and they would also take really anything of kind of that larger size in the summer as well. But this is not a storage facility like a self-storage where you clean your closet out and go and store it there. So in the summer they might have RVs for folks who go south in the winter, or classic cars or things like that. And the idea is longer term storage, not go get it in the morning and bring it back in the evening. Although they would prefer not to have a restriction that limited that on their permit. That's not what they would like to do. They're looking to be open 7 days a week from 8 to 8, but by appointment only, and that would take care of a lot of concerns that might arise about traffic congestion if multiple people are trying to access the facility at the same time. The size of their building would accommodate about 22 to 24 larger boats. They provided letters of support or I guess letters of no concern or objection from both the township and the city of Hoka. We did receive one inquiry regarding the application from a neighbor, but we didn't receive any comments for or against. It's just south of the city of Hoka. It's a 1.8 acre parcel. They own an adjacent parcel that's within the city limits of Hoka. They currently They currently use the space simply for personal purposes, but no building exists on this site. They access it off East Freeman Street, which is also County 18, I believe, and they are the only residents on that side of the highway for some stretch. The only structure that they're requesting permission to use for this commercial endeavor is the proposed building. They have some existing buildings, but those are not included in this application. If there's any questions on anything in the staff reports, I'm open to those. And if I've glossed over or not emphasized something that I ought to have, chime in.
No, I think you've got everything we talked about.
This might not pertain to the application, but just out of curiosity, do you have to have insurance for the business end?
Yeah,
And you've got that?
yeah,
Mhm.
we've got a quote on it already, so.
Sure.
What's the height of the peak of the roof?
The ceilings would be 14 feet.
Probably about another 10 feet above that, I'm
I
guessing?
would guess
Yeah.
maybe at most. I think 10 would be pretty close.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be closed on the sides?
What's that?
Is it gonna have doors on the sides?
Right, it just.
Okay.
On the ends.
I'm thinking a 30-foot door in the front,
Uh-huh.
possibly another one in the back, I'm not sure.
And
So you
then,
could just go right
then
through.
the sides would be solid, closed in.
Yeah.
Okay.
With windows.
Well,
Yeah.
they're not gonna be windows, I think it just would come down 4 feet with clear paneling,
Sure.
just for light.
Yeah, I kinda had the impression of an open building, but
Yeah.
this will be closed, it'll have doors
It'll
and,
just, yeah, just be doors on one end, otherwise it'd be all open and the inside would be all.
Yeah.
open,
yeah, I was kinda, when you said ceiling, it kinda struck me,
Oh, yeah, just the top of
of the rafters.
yeah, see the clear.
Or probably the, what do they call them? Trusses.
Trusses.
Right, yeah.
Do we ask her questions about the evaluation, or do we wait until we get to each question?
I guess I'm open to them now, or use your own judgment, I guess, on whether it'd be better now or then.
I can ask them when we get to that section.
Is there a need for this there?
I have, well, if everybody has asked me to actually go through, I'd say I have over half of it full.
Is that right?
Yeah, so.
That's good. I'm envious, I've thought of doing that a lot of times.
I thought of doing this 15 years ago, I was young enough to build it myself, yeah, and more.
Well, I imagine at this point we could ask for questions, comments from the public, which I don't see too many people here that might want to talk. Does anybody want to address this? And it says additional questions from planning commission members, so. If there,
Can't ask much about a big empty building.
No,
Well, that's a good point, doesn't have any plumbing.
no.
There'll be a
Gravel.
few questions when we come along, we get to the
Why isn't it?
review, the evaluation.
shall we move on to the findings of fact then and discuss those?
Sure. I will read each finding required for the grant of a interim use permit, provide a staff analysis, and then ask members to vote yes or no, and provide a reason for their vote.
When you do this, when we get to a question, can I ask for an answer about something, or should I do that now?
I think either way would be fine, but
No, I'm just asking you which way would be the proper way to do
proper.
it.
I guess I don't know the.
If I ask now, that'll give me the answer I need in determining whether I'm yes or no on the question.
Let's do it now.
All right, I got 3 questions. One of the questions that we're gonna ask in a little bit is about the potential pollution hazards and have they been addressed and meet standards. According to a staff analysis, it says machines and vehicles will be winterized prior to storage and portable fuel tanks and toilets will be removed. In addition, the applicant plans to place a lime screening base. So the fuel tanks in the boats have to be removed?
Well, I'm just thinking like, for small fishing, boat, you have a little 6-gallon can.
Yeah.
I just assume for fire reasons.
But somebody that brings in a camper or something like that, I mean, those tanks aren't portable. Are you gonna require that they be empty or?
No.
So,
It's just.
there
I don't
there
wanna
will
say
be
have a
fuel.
radio
There will be
gas
fuel
can or
on site.
something,
All right. Then another question, it talks about adequate measures for sufficient off-street parking and loading space. This is strictly interior storage, you're not gonna have people parking outside the building or anything of that nature? Okay. Then the last question I had pertains to the diagram that we got from you, Aaron. On the diagram, it shows distances from property lines on 3 sides, but not on the 4th side.
From the north?
Yeah,
Yeah,
He owns that.
he owns that parcel.
that's a 1.8 acre parcel. What's the distance? Because if he sells it, does that bring it out of compliance?
Oh, good question.
That's a wooded hillside, isn't it?
It
Right.
is.
Yeah.
If we sold it, we would sell
Right.
all of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say.
We wouldn't
We just
retain
bought
it.
it.
Do you happen to know how?
It's 2 separate parcels. My only question
Right,
is,
right.
it
Yeah.
should be set back from the parcel line.
What, in terms of the wood line, essentially, if I look at the aerial, it looks like your parcel line is close to the wood line. Would this building be 50 feet off that wood line?
No, I don't think quite 50. Probably, well,
Not far from it. If your building is 60 feet wide, just swing that around,
Yeah,
that's
it's-
about the same.
Well, that drawing on page 6 there is not to scale.
Oh, okay, look good.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to make it as good as we can, but that's not the,
Okay,
um,
What is 60 feet?
I mean, you
I'd say
could,
it's almost the length of this room, roughly.
This is not a,
It's trying to visualize something.
but this is not a 50-foot room.
I would think that, given the parcel, that if they're not proposing it, do you have it laid out or anything yet, or do you have the ability to move it north-south a bit?
No, actually, I was gonna ask you that if we do this, once we stake it, if you need to come down.
Right, if your IUP is recommended tonight and then ultimately granted by the county board, you will need a zoning permit to actually build the building at some point, and that's when it would need to be staked
Oh.
out. But if I look at the map, it looks like you would have the ability to move it south a bit if you weren't
You
already
could move
proposing
south
it
or
there.
shorten it up just a little bit even if we had to, but.
So I think it could.
Okay.
It certainly could
That
meet the
was
50
my
foot.
only questions. That's all I have.
I think that's a good point, though. Someday down the road, when probably neither one of us are still there, you may sell them together, but they may split them. And it would be better if it was compliant with the setback.
I guess I'll note that if they just wanted to build a shed, we would not require them to set back from that property line because they own the other property.
I guess, huh?
And that does kind of create the
That-
same number of
That
potential
always-
issues,
I realize we do that, but I cringe every time we do it.
as do I, but if you look at a lot of, farmsteads where they own multiple parcels, the opposite would also create a litany of issues as well.
I guess, yeah. Well, in this case, would there be a hardship? I mean, would you have to make the building smaller? I don't wanna have to do that.
It, where it's gonna lie now, it does,
Well,
it
owning,
does start to taper down just a little bit, so.
owning the other parcel, if that's the parcel that we're talking about might be sold, they could move that property line,
Right, I mean, people can create new property lines, under our current,
because it probably would have to be surveyed anyway, to sell that parcel, so you could move,
Move the
Yeah.
line 50 feet.
or whatever you wanted to.
well, I
Wouldn't
mean,
be
that's a
50
corporate.
feet, but I mean, I'm just asking what the the distance
Yeah.
is, cause it wasn't there.
I mean, they might move it 10 feet, but I mean, since they own that other property, they can move that property line wherever they want to, should they sell it.
That's the city limit, property corporate limit line too. But I think in this case, they can easily locate the building to have the 50 feet, and we don't need to solve the bigger problem
Yeah,
tonight.
I don't think we do either.
Actually, we've got to be careful because on my farm, we've got a section line goes right through my garage.
Yeah.
You know, we got
Yeah.
stuff sitting on parcel lines all over the place, you know, so it might be kind of a moot point because if you own it, it's kind of yours.
Yeah.
That's what I think, but.
It'd be pretty much worthless to anybody but like us to own it because it's just a steep hillside. We
Right.
just bought it because we got a deal on it, maybe it's,
And
There's
nobody
nobody-
can build on
you
it.
couldn't build anything there,
Our well is at the top of the hill, you cannot put anything on
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
our well is within probably 10 feet of that line up there, or windmill and stuff that's up there, so.
It's good to check it out, though. Let's see.
Okay, should we get into the findings?
Yep.
Number one, the planning commission that the proposed use conforms to the county land use plan. The staff analysis is the proposal conforms with the county's policy to preserve prime ag land. The location is near urban areas, but not prime agricultural soils, and is therefore a suitable location for this use. I'll read your name and ask for a yes or no vote. Any reason for that vote, should you care to provide one? Bob?
I agree with staff analysis, plus if you look at the comprehensive use plan, it does recommend that this type of business try and be located as close to a residential community as possible, which is right on the border of Hoka, so that kind of falls in line with the comprehensive use plan.
Larry?
Yes, I agree with Bob.
Ed?
I agree.
Rich?
Yes.
Jim?
I agree.
Number two, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. The staff analysis is the applicant feels there is a demand for this type of facility and intends to use it as retirement income. Larry?
Yes, I agree with staff analysis and the applicant has stated that he has practically half full already. Or has capacity for half full already, and it can't be full because it ain't there.
Ed?
I agree, and I think it's good to encourage useful services in the county.
Rich?
Yes.
Jim?
I agree with staff analysis.
Bob?
Yes.
Number three, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. The analysis is that the facility does not include any usage of water. Ed?
I agree.
Rich?
I agree.
Jim?
I agree.
Bob?
I agree with the notation that there is, although it's a fairly large surface area, there's a substantial area for the drainage to be absorbed into the ground before it gets into the waterways.
And Larry?
I agree.
Food bias.
Number 4,
Sorry.
that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. And the analysis is that the direction of water flow will not be changed with the addition of this facility, as there are no major land alterations planned. Rich?
I agree with that.
Jim?
I agree with staff analysis.
Bob?
I agree with what I said for the previous question. Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Ed?
I agree.
Number 5, that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Analysis is that soils are adequate for the proposed use. The soil survey instructs buildings to be designed to conform to the natural slope and explains this soil is not suitable for row crop production. Jim?
I agree, it's, particularly the part where it says it's not suitable for row crop production, it's good land use.
Bob?
I agree.
Larry?
I agree.
Ed?
I agree.
And Rich?
I agree.
Number 6, that potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. And in addition to the questioning and response ahead of time, I think staff also offers that machines and vehicles will be winterized prior to storage, and portable fuel tanks and toilets will be removed. In addition, the applicant plans to place a lime screening space. Septic is not applicable for this application. So that, I guess I should say, is qualified by the responses to Bob's questions earlier, and that there will be fuel in the vehicles, but those that have removable chemicals, those will be removed. Bob?
I agree with staff analysis.
Larry?
I agree with staff analysis.
Ed?
I agree.
Rich?
I agree.
And Jim?
I agree.
Number 7, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. The analysis here is that no new utilities are needed. Larry?
I agree with staff analysis.
Ed?
I agree also.
Rich?
I agree.
Jim?
I agree.
Bob?
I agree.
Number 8, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide sufficient off-street parking and loading space to serve the proposed use. The analysis is that there will be adequate area in front of the building for maneuvering vehicles or equipment around. This area is all well within the petitioner's property. Limited parking is needed as access will be by appointment only and numbers can be controlled. Ed?
Seems well planned, yes, I agree.
Rich?
Yes, I agree with that.
Jim?
I agree that they have enough room for off-street parking.
Bob?
I agree.
Larry?
I agree.
Number 9, that facilities are provided to eliminate any traffic congestion or traffic hazard which may result from the proposed use. The analysis here is the petitioner estimates less than 100 trips per year and plans to have customers by appointment only, so heavy traffic will be prevented in that respect. Access is off Freeman Street, and they are the only residents utilizing it. Rich?
I agree with that. I don't think that, there'll be any traffic hazards or, traffic congestion at that spot.
Jim?
I agree.
Bob?
one notation, that's East Fremont Street, and they are currently the only residential. But I agree with staff analysis.
What did we call it in terms of? We didn't call
Fremont
it.
Street, there's east and west.
Oh,
We
I
just
see, I
call
see.
it Fremont Street. There are residents on the other side. Just clarification.
Larry.
Yes, I agree with staff analysis, and I guess I'll say because of the size of the facility, it limits the size of the equipment that'll be coming in there.
And Ed?
I agree.
Number 10, that the interim use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. The analysis here is the closest neighbors are located on the other side of County 18, and the applicant is the only, and I'll qualify this by, or I'll modify this by saying current residents on the road. Jim?
I agree. I'm familiar with the property, and the tree line provides adequate screening for the existing neighbors.
Bob?
I agree.
Larry?
I agree.
Ed?
I agree.
And Rich?
I agree.
Number 11, that the establishment of the interim use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for the predominant uses in the area. The analysis is that the applicant owns the property around this, and either the slopes or agricultural land inhibit other development. The city and township have no objections. Bob?
I agree with staff analysis.
Larry?
I agree with staff analysis.
Ed?
I agree.
Rich?
I agree.
And Jim?
I agree.
Number 12, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. The analysis here is there's no signage proposed, and no odor, fumes, dust, or vibrations are anticipated. Larry?
I agree with staff analysis.
Ed?
That
I-
does bring up a question. Is there gonna be electricity in the building?
There's power up there, and I think if I do, it'd probably just be mainly a yard light up there.
Sorry.
Ed?
I agree.
Rich?
I agree.
Jim?
I agree.
Bob?
I agree because the existing drive is crushed rock. There won't be any additional dust or noise involved with the business.
Number 13, if I hear no objection, will consider to be not applicable.
Move on.
Okay, and number 14, the intensity of any proposed commercial or industrial development is not greater than the intensity of the surrounding uses, or not greater than the intensity characteristic of the applicable zoning district. Analysis here is that this building will be no different in size from the typical agricultural building found within the Ag Protection District. No effect is anticipated on the residential land to the south and west, or to the agricultural land to the east. Ed?
I agree with the staff analysis.
Rich?
I agree.
Jim?
I agree.
Bob?
I agree.
And Larry?
I agree.
Number 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And the analysis here is that public health, safety, morals, and general welfare are in no way anticipated to be impacted. Rich,
I agree.
Jim,
I agree with staff analysis.
Bob,
Based on the anticipated use, I agree with staff analysis.
Larry,
I agree.
and Ed.
I agree.
Okay, should the board move to recommend the interim use? Staff is recommending 6 conditions, many of them to comply with the standards required by the ordinance. Number 1, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Number 2, the permit shall be subject to renewal at 5-year intervals. The renewal process shall be initiated by the permittee and may be done administratively. No public hearing is required for renewal unless it is determined by the zoning administrator or the county board that a hearing is necessary. In the event that it is determined that a hearing is necessary, the hearing will take place only after the permittee submits an application to the county. Any questions on that recommendation? Number 3, the permit shall expire if it is not renewed at or near 5-year intervals. The permit shall expire at such time that Mark and/or Dana Cairns no longer own and maintain homestead status on the property described in the application, current parcel 05006100. Questions on that?
Just one, just for myself, basically. Will they get a notice that it's time to renew that, or how does that work? I mean, and if they forgot, what is there like,
Yep.
when a month or a week? Or what?
Well, I guess I'm intentionally vague on at or near and what that
Okay.
means. Yeah, it's our intent to provide a notice, but it is not the county's responsibility to
Oh.
make sure they renew. So that's why the language is in there so that
Glad you asked that.
yeah.
I mean, if they forgot about it a month later, you'd consider that near.
I would certainly consider a month later to be
Okay.
near, yes. But again, I'm specifying that it's initiated by the permittee,
Yeah.
not the county.
Good with that.
Number 4, hours of operation shall be 8 a.m. through 8 p.m., Sunday through Saturday, 7 days a week. Number 5, the maximum number of employees working on site shall not exceed 2 at any one time.
When you say employees, you are not considering them as employees, you're talking hired people.
I guess I was considering them when I wrote that, but
They're owners, they're not employees.
okay. Well, then it would, if that's the way that we would interpret it, that would be them plus 2 more.
Yep.
I don't anticipate you plan on hiring anybody anyways. I just want clarification that you're the owners, you are not employees, you own it.
Yes.
There's no W-2 or anything like an employee would get, so.
Sure.
They can have 2 employees if they so choose, but that's not considering themselves.
Everyone comfortable with that?
I am.
And you folks are fine with that? And then lastly, the building shall be set back 50 feet from all parcel lines, including the parcel to the north under co-ownership. So,
What did you determine as far as that on the parcel that we own?
how far your current proposal is? I don't have precise enough tools at,
No, but I mean that the land that we own north of that, did you decide which?
well, this condition that I just proposed here would say you need to be set 50 feet off the line of the one, your homestead parcel, not the adjacent co-owned parcel.
The one, but not the city, in the city limits?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, all
Is it-
right. I understand.
Okay.
I guess I'd still question if we need to do that.
Yeah, me too. As long as they own it.
Okay.
My issue with it is this, if you got two parcels and like you're talking about, the parcel line goes through the garage, that's a problem. Because if you ever sell one parcel, somebody's gonna own half a garage and you're gonna own half a garage unless you have it surveyed and move it over so that the garage stays on the parcel. In advance of that, when we grant something, we should make sure that it's off the parcel line, so if you ever want to sell that parcel, you aren't creating a non-conforming use, my opinion.
Yeah.
So if we've got the opportunity to make sure it's correct from the get-go, I think that's what we should do. And maintain the
Could you
maintain
word
the
it that
setbacks.
if we granted this, that we would have to adjust the other property line, maybe that way, if we ever, if it was ever sold?
We are likely moving in a direction that would require that, but I think this is a bigger issue with lots of different
All kinds of
considerations.
Yeah,
consideration.
I think if it was a real hardship, I'd say we could, you know, we could bend on it. But I agree with Bob. We don't know what's gonna happen 20 years from now, you know. Maybe that'll be a buildable lot there, I don't know. And you know, I think if it was a significant hardship, I'd say it wouldn't be a big deal.
I
But
think,
if we can accommodate the rule as it is, I think we should do that.
I think we're creating a hardship. They own that land.
Yeah. Well, in this case, I think they can easily meet the 50 feet off that line, and you know, the whether or not we should require setbacks from co-owned parcel lines is a much broader issue. But specific to their current, what's on the table before you now, I think they're probably already proposing it 50 feet off. I can't verify that for you right now, but if they're not, they're really
What are we
close.
using as a line is just
That's
with
what's
the
gonna be
beacon.
my question.
I mean, we're using
Where's the
the
line?
beacon line here, right,
Well,
which is adding.
There was no distance given on our map.
You know, yeah, I understand.
There's three sides,
Right,
not the
right.
fourth
Yeah.
side. That was my question, how far is it?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I assisted them to complete the application, so that I didn't provide it because of the co-owned parcel. If there's a fence there, we would use the best information we had. So if we had,
There's some remnants of an old fence there, yeah.
we would use that in that case then. But I think you're probably,
Do you know more or less, Mark, where that property line is?
We've always considered a tree line was city limits.
Oh, yeah, it's a city limit too, isn't it? You know, my issue with it is that kind of puts us in the position of having to guess what's likely to happen with each of these. Whenever we do this, we have to guess what's gonna happen with that other parcel 10 years down the road. And like I said, if it's fairly reasonable to accommodate it, I think we should. If it causes significant hardship, then I'd say we could deal with that as well.
well, in this case, I'm not hearing any strong objections from you all to having to set that back 50 feet from the wood line.
I guess not, yeah, I mean.
So, you know, I think, and
it's
what
not
you're
a
saying is
buildable
if
site.
it were a,
Like I say, you get to that line, and you walk 10 feet into the woods and you go straight down the hill, you know, so it's not like it's, could be developed into anything either,
you could make the recommendation with that language in it tonight. I could work with them and determine where 50
Yeah.
feet is, and the county board could always modify that
That's-
if they
that's-
chose to.
That's a good compromise.
Yes.
I agree.
Um,
What do you think, Bob?
I agree.
so the six conditions that are being recommended.
Yes. You're gonna word that other one up.
So do we typically do a motion to approve the findings and a motion to make a recommendation?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Do we know where less than 50 feet? Do we know where less than 50 feet?
I didn't measure it.
That's the other thing, we don't know for sure.
And you're maybe
sitting here.
compliant already.
We might be okay.
But if Aaron has the discretion to look at it and say, yeah, you know, you're gonna be
And
Well,
Yeah, we
2
might,
feet into a gully, then it doesn't make sense.
what they do here tonight is they're just gonna make a recommendation to the county board, and I don't know the exact date. Holly, when will this likely go? June 11th. So between now, I'm assuming we might have a motion to recommend approval of this from the board here tonight. If that happens, I would be able to work with you between now and that June 11th date, and the county board would have the ability to revisit that. So if you're proposing it and it's already meeting the 50 feet, it's a moot point, and we don't need to spend any time talking about it. If it is gonna become a hardship for you, we could again discuss it, in that last venue, and they would be the body that makes the final determination on your application.
That's right.
I guess
Sounds reasonable.
I'd just like to go on record, I still don't agree with this.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you're looking into the future, at some point, you might have to take care of it then, but I'm not sure it's our responsibility to take care of it now.
Because now is the time to take care of it.
I understand
Instead
that.
of the future, it's just like the Board of Adjustment meeting that they had earlier.
Yeah.
Guy bought small parcel of property. Well, it's not my fault, it's small, that's somebody else did that. Then he shouldn't be able to put something on too small a lot. Should have known it was too small when he bought it, not say, well, it's somebody else's fault. We address it now. It's kind of a moot point on this one, but future issues, property lines and setbacks, you gotta look at them. That's what it says in the ordinance.
ordinarily, I'd agree with that you do have to look into the future. But just like you said, this one's different because they own that.
Well, it's a much bigger issue in the context of just standard zoning permits, because that would come up much more frequently than this. So that's something we probably ought to take a look at, and
It's kind of a moot point in this situation, but we gotta come forward and look at it every time.
Yeah, and
If somebody owns 2 parcels, if you live in the city of Caledonia and you own 2 empty lots and decide, well, I'm gonna build my house 4 feet from the lot line,
Good on that.
because I own this lot. Now somebody buys this lot, they can't build on it because you built too close. You gotta address it up front, not wait until after the fact and say, well, that guy did it, it's not my fault.
Well, maybe
Otherwise,
they-
we're-
Maybe they bought the 2 lots figuring that they were gonna have the room to build a house.
And then they decide to sell the other
Well,
lot after
then
they.
then they couldn't sell the lot because they were too close.
but then they're gonna come in here and say, well, I didn't do it, I want a
But-
variance.
what I could do is I could put together
It's a moot point. We're
some
arguing.
analysis on this for you, and
Pick
we
your
could
own
get
thing
these.
here.
I'm talking about
If
this
everybody's
different time.
against it, let's just take it off of the conditions, but it's something that we should address every time there's something that's too close to a property line. Doesn't matter who owns both sides, because somebody could own the other side some other day.
And probably will.
In this case, it's small, it's
I'm
unbuildable, I
I'm gonna say
understand.
one more thing.
Go ahead.
I just paid my property tax. I own the land I own. I figured if I own it, I should be able to build and then worry about the property lines some other time. It's not my deal. That's my piece.
Sure.
So
Then you gotta come before Larry and the Board of Adjustment.
No, the next owner does, not me.
That's the other guy's problem.
Yes, it is.
But the gist of this,
oh, you
we're gonna
bought that
leave
from Ed.
number, we're gonna leave number 6 in,
I'm sorry.
and hopefully that they can, when it goes before the board, if there's a problem, we can deal with it then, correct?
Board can make-
yeah, somebody can make a motion now for all 6, or somebody can make a motion for 5.
I'll
However,
make a motion that we accept all 6, special conditions.
okay. So you're making a
Have we
motion.
approved the findings of fact yet?
Oh,
Okay.
Yep. So someone can make a motion to approve finding of facts.
I'll make a motion to approve the finding of facts with the 6 conditions that we made.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Was there further discussion?
The conditions that we made have nothing to do with the findings of fact. Findings of fact are the findings of fact. The conditions are going with the recommendation to the county board.
Yeah.
The conditions aren't part of the findings of
We
fact.
always have been.
No. Findings of fact, you agree with all the findings of fact. Then you make a
Okay.
recommendation, a motion to recommend to the county board the approval with these conditions.
Do you want
Right?
to?
Am I wrong?
Or lump them
No,
together.
that's correct, but I don't think we have to redo the findings.
Do you want to
Yeah.
rephrase your motion?
Well, we have to have two separate motions then, right?
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we approve the finding of facts.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion, we approve the 6 recommendations as we defined them.
And recommend approval of the county board?
And, yes.
And recommend approval by the county board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So you said goes to the county board June 11th, I believe? Any further discussion on the motion?
Already done.
We'll
All
be in touch,
conditional.
maybe early, sometime next week, and we could take a look at distances and
All conditional uses are recommended here, finalized by the county board.
Now, do we go to the county board meeting too then, or?
You
Sure
certainly
can.
could, and if the distance is at all of an issue, then you should. If that 50 feet is not a
Oh,
concern at all for you, then
Right.
you're not required to, and it's, people don't always do that. It's not usually as in-depth as the conversation here tonight was.
The minutes of the previous meeting, will anybody have any,
What do they do with them?
Objection to those?
There.
Thank you, guys, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
Sorry to extend it.
It's okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain, I wasn't here.
You should come more often, see how much fun we have.
Let's see, any other business?
Thanks again.
We do have a new member, Robert Conway, was appointed. He's out of town right now, but we anticipate him being here at our next and future meetings.
Who's he gonna replace?
Me,
Yep.
Who's gonna be our comedian now?
I'm still gonna be here. I took Fred's place. He's taking my
Oh, oh.
citizen place.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn and a
I
second.
thought you made it.
All those in favor? No.
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's over.